Maya Marshall, even though Richard Allen Taylor is going to read first, and Jesse Hilton will be introducing him. I just wanted to mention that Maya comes to us from Brooklyn, New York. She grew up in Texas and Georgia, but she went away and lived in Chicago for a very long time. And she is the co-founder of Underbelly Mag. I understand there's a new issue out from January with not only the actual poems, but drafts of the poems and revision reflection, which is a really cool idea. She has fellowships from Cave Canem, Callaloo, Vermont Studio Center, Squaw Valley Community of Writers. Her chapbook in 2016 was called Second Hand. It was published by Dancing Girls Press. And she is the author of a debut full-length poetry collection, All the Blood Involved in Love. And you'll be able to get those down at Buxton today. That was from Haymarket Books in 2022. And also she is an editor and an essayist and a general scholar. She teaches English and anything else but English? English at Adelphi University, and she's an editor with Haymarket. And let's see. Anything I've forgotten? I told you about that. That's it. All right, so I'm going to, she earned her MFA from the University of South Carolina, one of the most important things. Okay, thank you, and we'll see you in a few minutes. And come on up, Jesse, and introduce Richard Allen Taylor.
So one of the best things about doing poetry is that you get the chance to introduce incredible talent and to be up here and feel like you're a part of it. And tonight I'm actually incredibly blessed to be able to introduce incredible talent and an incredible friend. So I'm very honored to announce Richard Allen Taylor for you tonight. He is the author of 4 poetry collections, most recently Letters to Karen Carpenter and Other Poems, which was published in 2023 by Main Street Rag. His poems, articles, and reviews have appeared in Rattle, Comstock Review, The Pedestal, Iodine Poetry Journal, Running with Water, Wild Goose Poetry Review, Litmosphere, and Gyroscope Review, among others. A Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, Taylor formerly served as the president of the Charlotte Writers Club and the director of adult contests for the North Carolina Poetry Society. For many years, he served as the review editor for the Main Street Rag and the co-editor of Cackalack. He and his Cackalack co-editors were honored as recipients of the Irene Blair Honeycutt Legacy Award in 2026 for service to the writing community. After retiring from his business career, he earned an MFA in creative writing from Queen's University of Charlotte and now resides, well, not in Myrtle Beach, in Greer, South Carolina. So, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Allen Taylor.
Thank you, Jess, for that very kind introduction. And thank you, Tamara, for all you do for South Carolina poets and what a tremendous bunch of helpers you have with Jim Lundy and Jesse Hilton and Charles Watts and many others, I'm sure. It is a real privilege to be reading in front of this group. Some of you I have known for years and years, and remember Ed, I remember publishing your poems way back, you know, in Cackalack and Francis Pierce and other folks in here too. Well, the impetus for this new book called Letters to Karen Carpenter and Other Poems, maybe that's the wrong word. I already had a sizable number of poems ready to go. But then my wife died in 2019 after a long illness and a battle with leukemia. So there I was, and as poets often do, we write about our grief and we try to write through our grief. And so I was writing poems about my wife, Julie. And one day it seemed that she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Enough about me, you got to have another project. You're getting in kind of a rut." So I heard a song on the radio by Karen Carpenter. I was very moved by it and said, well, that's what, you know, maybe I should write some poems about Karen Carpenter, and one thing led to another. So in this book, about 1/4 of the poems are either addressed to or about Karen Carpenter. And then there are poems about my wife, and then other poems. I'm very proud to be the opening act tonight for Maya Marshall, and I'm looking forward to your reading. And I hope I'll make you feel warmly welcome by doing a good job up here. But I'm going to read a couple of poems from the Karen Carpenter section, and then a couple from the other poems. So I want to begin with a poem that reminds us that Karen Carpenter was not born a great talent. She actually, as a teenager, played drums in a trio called the Richard Carpenter Trio, and she was primarily the drummer. She could sing, but not as well as she later sang. And then she said in an interview one time, then suddenly out popped this voice. And so that's the title of this poem. Then suddenly out popped this voice. Even the great Buddy Rich said you were a good drummer. Your voice would soar up the charts later. At 16, you sang in tune, but lacked vibrato, voice thin as a wafer. You wouldn't know it was me, you said. Then suddenly out popped this voice. Your sound combined innocence and sensuality, declared Paul Williams. Instantly recognizable, said Phil Ramone. We, your fans, could name your songs in 3 notes. To Mike Curb, your one-time boyfriend, it was a microphone voice. Barely audible in the car, but velvet in front of a microphone. I hear you as a mellow bell ringing in a canyon, and the canyon is me. Now, Karen, as most of you know, Karen Carpenter had a bad case of anorexia nervosa, which eventually led to her death. And although she died of a heart attack, it was a complication of her condition. But a lot of the popular music people who were in the rock press and popular music press blamed her mother, said her mother drove her crazy. And Agnes Carpenter, her mother was a crazy person, I think. But I wrote a poem called Agnes Speaks Out, and I'm proud to say this poem won the Seiler Memorial Award for this group, the Poetry Society of South Carolina, won it last year. So I'm glad to read this poem to you for the first time. This is called Agnes Speaks Out. And the epigraph reads, imagining a letter from Agnes Carpenter responding to Ron Miller's quote, if there's an arch villain in the story, it's probably Agnes Carpenter. And that was spoken said in a movie review of the Karen Carpenter story, a motion picture. So this is the voice of Agnes Carpenter. I did not kill my daughter. That's what I told that reporter, Barry Morrow, and that's what I'm telling you. Tabloids. Some gossipy fool always blames blameless parents. Everything I did was for my children. My husband and I worked our hands to the bone to pay for drums, pianos, music lessons, whatever they needed. If you ask me, stress murdered Karen. All that fame, sudden wealth, and a worthless husband who just wanted her money. Who knew she had an eating disorder? People say I drove her crazy. Wrong. I taught her to keep a clean house. And some dumbass says I passed along my obsession for neatness to her. and that psychiatrist making it sound like Karen had to compete with her brother for my love. Ridiculous. Karen was just a better singer. Richard was the musical genius. Everybody knew it. Those were the facts. Karen knew I loved her. Why do they all think I needed to tell her that? That's not the way we do things in this family. So skipping over to the end of that chapter, I ended this section on Karen Carpenter by writing a poem addressed to Karen Carpenter, but about my late wife. And so this is really a tribute to my wife, Julie. And it's entitled, I Write to You About Julie, My Wife. I named a star after her. Astronomers call it HD 10180. Both Julies, the woman I remember and her eponymous star, emit a kind and generous light. The star deserves a name that twinkles, and she deserves the star. I never call her HD 10180, but often call the star Julie. I chose it out of billions because, like you, Julie got along so well with others. None of that blasting the neighbors with deadly gamma ray bursts the way some pulsars do. And like the star, my wife, when she was alive, had a family that orbited her adoringly. Astronomers have identified a possible gas giant designated HD 10180G, residing comfortably in Julie's habitable zone. And though the giant's crushing gravity could never support planetary life, they may find moons that do. Suspected of strong winds and colorful bands, without Julie's life-giving warmth and shine, HD 10180G would be little more than a vast frozen cloud, a derelict adrift in deep space. I wish I could point out Julie to you, but it's in the constellation Hydrus, which is only observed from the southern hemisphere, and though brighter than our own sun, Julie resides 127 light years away, so we'd need a telescope. I understand your concern that the striking similarity between the designations HD 10180 and HD 10180G might confuse some observers. Don't worry. To anyone who's ever seen us together, it's obvious. I am the gas giant. She is the star. And I'll finish with one that's a little lighter. And I was challenged one time to write an updated, pick a nursery rhyme and write a poem about it. So the one I picked was Hey Diddle Diddle. This is called Hey Diddle Diddle, a love story. Diddle Diddle the cat, like all felines, knew what she wanted and went after it. A ball of yarn or loose threads from the bedroom curtain, morsels dropped carelessly from the breakfast table. She wanted fiddle and got him. But that affair, begun with vibrato, ended with a lusty, exquisite screech worthy of a Tchaikovsky violin concerto. Diddle decided she really wanted a love with no strings attached. Spoon stirred her interest and proved to be good for a casual lick, especially after warm milk. But Spoon, not yet ready to settle down, quickly succumbed to the amorous advances of Dish. One of those workplace romances. It began innocently, two co-workers rubbing rim against rim in the kitchen sink, leading up to nightly tryst, banging together in the dishwasher. Unknown to all these errant lovers, the moon observed everything beneath his cheesy nose that kept things quiet, as if he had a choice living in his vacuum. He knew each would sooner or later find happiness somehow. Diddle, now back with Spoon, plans to marry in June, despite the disapproval of both families. Fiddle and Dish have no marriage plans, but have run away together and joined a bluegrass band on a cross-country tour. Twanging and thumping their way to California, they're expecting a little one soon, hoping it will have her lid and his frets. Whether Diddle and Spoon or Fiddle and Dish will live happily ever after is anyone's guess. But Moon keeps shining, wishing them well, hoping they will jump over him joyfully as the cow did when the little dog left. Thank you so much.
Let's bring up my watch. Tell me all the secrets from that.
Oh, that's a trustworthy friend. Hello. Hi, poets. How are you?
Great.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. Can you hear me with ease?
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent. My mom is on the Zoom, so she might be texting me. I might get distracted. This phone is here just so that I have a timer. Am I right that I have 35 minutes? Is that real? Okay. I'm going to read some poems from my book called All the Blood Involved in Love. It's about all the blood involved in love. About the making children with your body, about the loss, about loving people in the nation who are killed, all the blood, and all the love. I'm going to start with a love poem because I've been inspired by you, Richard. And this one doesn't have any stars in it, just love. It's called Love Poem with Homemade Cookies. Sure, I put all these Post-it notes on here, thinking I would just follow the plan. That's not what we're doing. I'm a rebel. So please be patient with me. Okay. I have a beloved. I found him 6 weeks after I moved to Atlanta, Georgia from Chicago, Illinois. By which I mean I went on the internet and I said, Bumble, help me find someone whose company I appreciate who does not annoy me all of the time. And Bumble said, I can do one of those things. And you'll like him more than everyone else. Love poem with homemade cookies. I'm nervous about writing about my kitchen and how you kiss it. And about how I like to lick the outside curve of the spoon. Spoon, I'm grateful for you and your strong, soft hands. I like that they sweat for no reason. I'm nervous, but why? Love is serious. It's all we're ever writing about anyway. Half of war is the defense of love, and the other half is blood money. Race is some people saying we love ourselves enough to fight to live. And anyway, I love you and how your body relaxes, creaks and cracks as it settles down onto the couch where I scritch your head and you scritch the fat cat's head. And I feed you cookies it took only hours to complete. I felt the ache in my left ankle and shifted to stir cardamom and salt with sugar for you. I want to make you things. I mention paint and you build a studio. I mention books and you build desks and shelves. What can I give you but a girl on your couch wearing your too big sweater? Dreams you can touch. A sweet treat that says, I think of you. I retrieve all the bits I need to make for you something more. Crumbs to put into your mouth with my lips. Okay, I'm gonna read some poems from this here book. I'm in the South, where I was born. I was born in DC and raised in Texas and Georgia. And now I live in New York, where I never thought I'd live. And so I'm gonna write this poem that came from my remembering my childhood. Girl born with cleft palate turns 10, divines for water in her backyard. Why? The shape of a discarded branch. Why over the dog dung spread in the yard's overgrowth? Why of two arms reaching out to slake their sweat in the sun? She cannot hear the voice of God, though her mother prays for her each morning. 16 dental surgeries, and she has recovered perfect hearing, recalls the space after death. Why links the passage to the middle ear? She cannot hear the voice of God, though she knew it in her swaddling clothes, whip thin, her now functional mechanisms, tongue, teeth, nose, uvula, the inner ear, gnash of prayer. Lead me to water, lead me to God, while she wanders her backyard with a divining rod. So this book, it took me 10 years to write it. Went to school and everything. And I went to lots of writing workshops and retreats and salons and living rooms and whatever. It took me a long time. And then at the end of it, I realized I was trying to answer one question, which is, do I want to parent? Most of the time, the answer is no. I was having a conversation with someone else, and he said, well, why don't you parent a little, as if that's something you can do a little bit? So why don't you parent a little? The story is that there is so much loss, so much waste in a woman who does not make a body with her body, such sunk potential in a sex that does not produce. The story is that we have progressed. The story is that the Black woman is safe. The story is that the Black woman is safe if she protects her king. The king is dead. Lavender Menace considers adoption. Have you ever heard of the Lavender Menace? It's a group of queer women who went to the National Women's Conference in the 70s and were called a distraction from the main issues. It's a nonsense thing to have said to them. And so I'm going to take that name for those mostly POC women who were talking about the main issues that women face. Lavender Menace considers adoption. I'm so American, I close my ports of nourishment with a bit of bread, a bourbon, a burrito bowl, a nipple. I take in and in like oceans, our landfills. My belly and arms swell and striate like felled logs. Consider the common inclination to love into submission. Hush, baby. I do this for myself when I masturbate to fall asleep. I have been a woman for some time now, a uterine cavern, an acute sense of danger. I want to be a mother unlike my own, and I am ashamed to think I think so little of her resilience, her desperate love of me. I do not want to bear a child because I do not want to feel never alone. I'm so American, I dream of children discarded. What happens to a child detained? And how many can I be a home to? It's an uplifting book. The field of blood. In the hospital, the man I love lowers his eyes. Catheter, cotton. I joined his mother for a walk. If I were your mother, I'd tell you not to marry him. My own mother says I can't stay with a sick man. You want to fix everything. But why should we leave good things broken? On some night, my love says, I wouldn't want to be black. And I try to understand how he could call blackness the burden, not the whiteness heaped on top of it. Blackness is not a failure of the body. I bleed daily for a month, produce a liver-shaped thing. He rinses his blood with a chemical cocktail every third Thursday. And we make nothing. No child, no pass, but distance until we both lose. On some day in our home, my love says our child would not be black, but we're American, I think, and say, she would. He thinks we understand each other because of his illness and my blackness, but my blackness does not make me sick. Love has betrayed my heart. I'm sure Judas loved Jesus, but fear is a tyrant. In this story, you're Judas, and I'm Judas too. A cynic would say he just loved money more, but what would they say to the field of blood? I loved my man and our cats, but the girl in my chest will always chase the storm in the field. Abandon the ghost in the house. Leave the blood and water running in the bathtub and hair on the floor. Walk into the warm spring night in a blackout. Follow the moon down the sidewalk, eyes glinting like the backyard cougars of my youth, and leave you with your bare heart and your mended bones waiting for me to come back. A version of me will leave and let the felines starve because the beast in me does not want to be needed. A cat's cry mimics an infant's cry. I like to think I could deny even this. I think I'm going to move away from this book, read some new things, and then I'll come back and end the sort of hopeful place that this book ends in. Also, I wrote a new poem. How would we call it hopeful? Maybe not. But I think part of my process in learning to write a poem is reading it aloud to a room full of people, because the thing is not finished being written until it's been shared with people. It's a circuit, you know. So bear with me. Hope it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Hopefully it will feel complete. I was listening to a different poet some year. His name is Jorge. He lives in Chicago, and I was at a reading series hosted by the magazine Rhino. It's called Rhino Reads, and he said sometimes it's just really difficult to come to a blank page, even when you know that you want to show up and write, but you don't know what you're going to bring to the page. So he just writes poem for these days on the top of it, and then he goes from there. So I have a few of those. I'll read one or two, and then I'm going to read one longish one. Poem for these days. Leaves spin down like helicopter blades against the blue-gray sky, and men who live outside spread out their things. Lovers horseplay in a gazebo. It's enough. Despite the still leaking car tire, even though Sunday is fast approaching, the blanket of leaves in the backyard is thin and crackling. Today, a daughter danced with her daddy. His cane leaned against a picnic table and her gray hairs licking her ears. The world outside is steady on its path toward tomorrow, saying yes, yes, slowly, yes, patient and unstopping into the night. I've become nervous. How are you doing? Oh, you're good. Okay, then I can relax. You're nervous? I'm sorry, why did you think that? All right, y'all, we're gonna read a new poem and a couple of small ones. It is tentatively called The Land of Nod. It's where it's where Cain was sent after he killed his brother. It is east of Eden. Apocalypse, meaning a great disaster. This one is happening slowly. Lobsters, a simmering pot. There is time to course correct, but group projects so often end in failure. I admit the end of spring flowers brings me joy in this city forest. When summer reveals her toes in warm light, when snow recedes and frost tender field marigolds seed way to cone flowers, I admit I am relentlessly grief-stricken. Transitions take so much. Take meaning require, meaning dues, meaning something dies so that something else might live. Grief attends such parties. And you don't need a list, but here's a gift. Knuckles. First blood. A mother's septuagenarian onion skin, a father's delayed understanding. Menopause. Human ash. Impotence. Pill bugs on their backs, other armors, other detritivores and decomposers. We all have jobs to do. All moves on. Praise moving on. I am relentlessly grief-stricken, and enjoying seems a crime. Infraction, betrayal, seems ungrateful. What's the word for when you know your own bounty and it swells while your body double shrinks with starvation, dehydration? For when your suburban sack rice team sees a father hopping, heaving, having a cardiac event, and the race goes on while your voice is choked or you are screaming and your feet are tangled in your own burlap, and the screams you scream are drowned by glee while a hospital falls in on itself because a powerful military's bomb was aimed at it. And all of the children, pregnant women, elderly, infirm, healers die inside the rubble while progress inches forward and recedes like a chest rising and falling, all breath moving forward until it ends. What's the word for that? We could all be justifiably furious all of the time, but our nervous systems would fail. The flowers are blooming in winter now and dying instead in spring. This same dynamic. Let fall all spent leaves and hopeful seeds. Let soil rest and detritivores breed. Let storms calm and sustenance return the birds' ancient migrations. Thoughts and prayers. Limp to a crowd and sway it. Call a tulip a totem. Call a genocide a genocide. Let us think of nothing else but flowers and the limp bodies of children. We cannot appreciate life without its opposite. Lay a rose next to a corpse and name what it takes to keep each one living. Observe the pallor and ash against the hue of a petal. Note the tender lip turned hard and the petals slow crinkling. I am relentlessly grief-stricken. The last gasp of man's place in nature calls me to the forest preserve, manicured and nursed by volunteers. And I trust the muscles of my thighs and arches of my feet and watch the cardinal flit. Watch as dusk descends in the late evening, as spring turns to summer. I know time will go on. Summer, then autumn will come. I will love the sapling of friendship. I will love the cicatrix of a family tree. I will love the dying root for all it has absorbed and let past. I am grief turned fractal. Let fall the petals to the mouths of millipedes. Let compost feed waking, dormant seeds. Long live the spring. The spring is dead. All right. I told you I met that nice man 6 weeks after I moved to Atlanta. And then he moved across the country to go to New York because he seems to like me, which is nice. And so part of this new book is about partnership. But right after we started dating, maybe 6 months in, he got diagnosed with colon cancer. He was okay. It was a lot of radiation and chemo and COVID and just a lot. And I'll tell you, if you fall in love in the middle of your life and the big hard thing happens at the beginning, you kind of believe it's just going to work out. I think it'll be fine. But I wasn't so sure at first, so I started writing about it. I'm going to read a non-traditional love poem, and maybe I'll read one that has cancer in it, and maybe not. We'll see. Cancer gets a lot of play, I think. Iterations or milkweed isn't poisonous for butterflies. My boyfriend fell in love with a woman on the screen this afternoon. So I showed him my groups, and he fell back in love with me. The 25-year-old version of him wants the other woman and whoever else wants him. Desire, vast and deep, may also be called an ever-filling void. Years ago, I jogged 3 times a week, miles around a neighborhood where I didn't know anyone, and everyone I saw could disappear the next day and I wouldn't notice. Call me customer, call me transient. Every house I passed looked like anywhere I'd want to live. I wanted and wanted a house, a family, a house, a family, a home. I jogged past an elementary school and clucked at the chickens around the hutch that winter. Cold in my lungs and sweat under my hat, I jogged through the forest preserve. I traveled parks and ponds. I drove south on the highway past murals, and one said, "Things take a long time." And it was right. In the city I loved, a Biafran man hollered at me on the street and followed me into a Middle Eastern grocery. My parents grew hopeful. He said I probably wanted to sell his story. Asked to check my calves to prove that I ran. That day I was waiting to hear if I had breast cancer. I was waiting for a connection with myself or someone else. I had half a hope to become 25 again. The version who wore loud polyester and raced road bikes. What I found was milkweed in a park with a friend, a poet whom I love. He was mourning a cluster of his dead. We walked along the river watching aphids eat. We kept our feet moving as we aged. It's now, and the man who loves me, who I love, has fallen through a tunnel in time, fallen into a fantasy affair with a woman on a screen. I fall in love with portals too, often. A woman in my memory clothes me, and I keep half a mind on her hands and the other on her lips. And then I come home. Come to me. Come with me, says my love. I found a ring for you. It's got a shard of dark carbon piercing its middle. Let's let it be the first in a series of iterations. It's been a lot of time in the hospital. People watching. Radiation oncology. A man holds a romance novel, and his husband's cock-eyed walker with a tennis ball on his foot. An array of texts trigger automatic hinges and throw doors open like grand robes. The man whispers into his love's ear, and they laugh, and he continues reading soft smut aloud. Delicious, delicate ear. Cancer steals some intimacies and introduces others. Age steals some intimacies and introduces others. The choreography repeats, doors flap open to tests, to certainties, to endings, then glide closed, and a nurse calls names, and the winners walk close together, lucky to have grown old together. You guys ever make potions? Do you ever make potions? Charles is like, I do, all the time. Okay, can I read you 3 more poems? Okay, I'm gonna read 3 more poems. One of them is titled Potion. I don't really pray like that. Never really been convinced, I guess. My brain's not convinced, my spirit is convinced. There's a kind of dissonance. Anyway, potion. Beloved, I know the power of several magics. Let's use them all. Dress me in the flying squirrel costume, and I will run and leap for you. Giggling is good medicine. Our mothers harness the power of prayer over phone lines and in grocery stores with whomever can join. And I thank them with my agnostic heart, and you roll your atheist eyes. I get it, but every little bit helps. Let's layer. Just tonight, we conjured the sweetest effusions and bathed in the sounds of pleasure. Let dopamine ring. Some science magic. Dopamine, as it turns out, inhibits growth and induces vascular normalization in cancer tissues. Boom. So we do it for love, and again for love. Sometimes lovemaking is warfare. Let's cover our bases, dear. So that in 5 years, the doctors say, not a trace, and enjoy your lives. To get there, we'll need every spell and potion. Okay, chemo, all right, radiation. Also, I'm mixing a hallowed mixture to bottle for you. Pulverize and boil equal parts black locust and ginkgo. To draw on the land we inhabit, strain the pulp and add creamed aloe, mint, and mango to match your sweet and healing qualities. I am a kid in my mother's bathroom again, this time with a mission. Lolly Pine be a hitman. Let the missing blood in your stool fear the titan of hallowed water and stay gone. On every coming game night, may you spritz a mist of this concoction in the air above your head. Let me bless your nose and neck with mine when I kiss you, when my eyes rest on yours, when the clock strikes 1:11, 11:11, midnight, 1, 2, 3, any bit of daily magic. I will wish, wish, wish. Oh, there are a few things I know for sure. 1, love is in the everyday, even if it's latent. We choose our people if we're lucky, the ones we're willing to vouch for, to clean up after, to fight with, to defend, to wait in lines and pharmacies and hot car lots and airports and traffic and dinner parties, anywhere for. And I'm lucky. Timing is everything. How long doesn't matter if the vibe is right. I changed my life, city, work, life. Then I met a man. He'd been depressed, and I knew depression. He'd been an office jockey, and I had been a dreamer. He is a fix-it man. He is a tinder giant with a black hole in his temple. His head is a galaxy, and now I wake up next to his cosmos. I watch his teeth and crow's feet when he laughs. He crackles when he stretches on the couch, and I listen to his heartbeat and scratch his ear, and atom after atom of me presses to his heat. And every day I want to look longer at him. The line on the bridge of his nose, the scars on his knuckles, knee, shin, ankles. I woke up last night on a mountain, the evidence of a slow fact, his bloody toilet paper in the bowl. A cancer is bleeding him. There are very few things I know for sure. My spit in the vanity basin, his hair indistinguishable from a small typed O. It looks the same as mine on our pillows. In the mornings, a small black O, where his pursed lips part just slightly, meets the circle of my pursed lips, seeking. I hear 2 black holes will collide soon. Wind rushes over trees in the mountains, and time maintains its rate. We breathe our morning breath on each other, and flush after each other, and reach for each other, and wait as the clouds slither by like scared rattlesnakes. We wake and wait, and wake, and wait, and wake. All right, we got 2 minutes. We'll do 2 poems. I'll read the very last one in my book, but first I'm going to read one called Every Day, because I like my mom. Every day. Today's nothing fancy. My mother lives, a simple pleasure. My cat made biscuits on my knee, and a woman I want giggled with me, invited me to touch a whale. I failed for a man I barely know, his delicious disdain, his persistent smile and flaking skin and mane, and he said, chartreuse. And I said, lime, lime, lime. Cheshire. Enough. Everyone I love is enough today. Me and you, love, we're at a precipice. The rain is falling down, each drop turning, plummeting down like balloons and splaying pow, pow, pow. My beloved says in 1 to 300 days, 2 black holes will collide. The astronomers are aiming their scopes, readying their tools for the first glimpse of what unseen may well have happened before, somewhere in the infinitude of space and time. Today is nothing short of extraordinary. My mother lives. I fall in love each separate way, only once, in all of this space and time. All right. Still with me? All right, this is the last poem in my book. My book is called All the Blood Involved in Love. It is a duplex, which is a form that was created by the Southern and amazing Pulitzer Prize winning Black poet Jericho Brown. And if you don't know him, you should know him.
He read for us.
It's because he's amazing and he doesn't live that far away. Okay. The big water. I want to say yes to the sea and live with the knowledge that I am small. I live with my knowledge small despite my good learning. The truth is hard. With all my costly living, truth is still hard. Sober, I find my mind in disarray. To save my life, I undress this disarray. Fear babbles beneath. Terror cannot protect. Terror cannot protect like anger does. And a vulnerable life leaves room for love. A vulnerable life leaves room for you to love yourself enough to lose someone. To love yourself enough to lose someone is to become the open sea, not the estuary. Thank you all so much. holidays to Jess and to Jim, and to Tamara, Charles, and to Richard, and to Doug for having me and hosting and doing the labor of making this happen. I so appreciate you. Have a good night.
And she will be signing books over at Buxton, and I'm going to meet you over there in just a few minutes. I did want to mention that we have Angela Jeter and Neo Canas coming up in next month, and then we have, I'm about to forget, Tarfia Fazula with Elizabeth Robin.
Nice.
And then the May Forum with John Hoppenthaler. Another exciting night because the winners of the spring contest will be announced then. Also, March 16th is another Poets on Stage event. And I have 2 poets selected for that already. And one of them is, again, Elizabeth Robin, right? I think. I think. And then in April, we have a Cherokee County Library reading for April, for Poetry Month. So if anybody's coming out in that direction, we'd love your support for that event as well. Always something going on. And if you want to start something up, let me know. See you at Buxton Books.